obviously in honour. There was a few awards that day, so I sort of luckily got to share the experience with a few people. Dan getting his VC has been obviously a huge event for the regular army in Afghan as well. So he's really proud of that as well, naturally. But as a group, I think we operated together for quite a long time, and we lived out quite remote for quite a long time. So I think as a unit, we were really close anyway. So all that sort of focus and attention that came with that, and on that particular day, having lost one of our boys as well, that sort of just fused us together a little bit more. And there's definitely there was a really good relationship in that patrol base between everyone.
I was studying at university and I was doing a degree that I wasn't really passionate about. It's just something I fell into, and then I looked at trying to get into the emergency services side of at the world, and I realised that being a young chap, I was only 21 when I was looking at this, I'd need some experience first. So I actually tried out for the fire brigade and got halfway through, and in the group interview there was about 10 other ex-military guys in my interview, and I was really impressed with their confidence, and they had this swagger about themselves, like everything was not a problem, and they had a can-do attitude. So that was something that attracted me to sort of expose myself to the same experiences that would lead me to be that kind of guy. So I enlisted for that reason, to get the experience and the training that would sort of be able to instill the same attributes that I saw in these guys that hopefully I've got now, having served with these guys overseas.
I think mine's pretty much the basic story. You know, Dad was in the military and Grandpa was in the military, and having grown up with that, I always looked up to that lifestyle, and I always felt like it was something that someone should do, you know, in their youth, to sort of you know, develop themselves into actual maturity and adulthood. So yeah, I guess it was always straightforward for me. I knew I was finishing school and going straight to the army, and I went a day after schoolies, so I was, you know, on the bus and ready to go pretty much straight out of year 12, and yeah, it was pretty straightforward. I knew what was happening for quite a long time. Yeah.
Wow, and supported by your family.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they were excited to you know, see someone get into a career. I guess uni was something that I thought about maybe doing afterwards. At the first thing I always wanted to do was just join the military and then sort of see where that takes me, and yeah, it worked out well.
Studying in the armed services too?
No, I went straight to infantry. That was always the one and only choice for me. So I didn't really want to do anything else. So I figured I'd do it once, do it right, and then, you know, worry about other things afterwards.
My mum and dad were both in the army. My dad's still a serving member in the Chocos, and so I was a bit of an army brat. So I grew up on the bases and had all dad's like cut up camouflage stuff, and I like running around the bush. You know, I want to be just like Dad, and sort of just. My one rule was I wanted to travel Europe before I joined, so I did that when I was like 18, 19, and as soon as I came back, I joined. So yeah, that was. I think I always wanted to be in the army, so. Stoked.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely stoked. Imagine learning to drive a car and then being completely capable of doing it, and you want your freedom, and then being told that you're never allowed to drive.
Good example.
So you want to do the job that you've trained for. So.
And there's a lot of like history and heritage and pride that comes with our you know, Australian military that we really want to live up to, and the only way you can do that is by getting a chance to actually do it, and you kind of feel in a way that if you never get to deploy and you never get to do your job, that you just simply can't live up to some of these guys. So it is something that our standard is so high with the Australian history of our military and our individuals, that it's something that you want to attain, you want to reach for that, and you can't do that from Australia, unfortunately. I mean, you can be as good as you like, but until you sort of deploy, you don't feel like you get to use the whole sort of you know, facet of your training and your experience.
You mentioned that I had different motivations for joining, and that's an interesting point. I think everyone would obviously have different motivations for joining, but the crazy thing, once you actually join and you become a part of this, your motivation changes. You've now joined this family, and this is your family. So your whole drive, your whole focus is not letting down your brothers or your mates. You know,
Yeah.
so you have this single motivation that drives everyone forward. So regardless of your individuality and your reasons for joining and your reasons for wanting to go over there, the whole driving focus is uniform, because everyone just wants to help out their mates and be a part of the family and keep that continuing. And it's the same reason that keeps you over there when you get down,
Yeah.
and it's the same reason that keeps you wanting to catch up with your mates when you get back.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a tiered loyalty as well, you know, it's sort of like you and your best mate, and then you and your section, and then you and your platoon, and your company, your battalion, and there's always like a system of who you want to look after first, and that's part of the, you know, almost like a family unit. You know, you look after your blood first, and then you worry about your cousins and so on, and,
Yeah.
and it's sort of tiered. But it's something that I think once you've all deployed or trained together, there seems to be something that binds you together for a little bit longer. It's just shared experience, like any career or any group of people that have had some shared experience. It just binds you together, a bit of hardship.
Every soldier carries around an ROE card as well, so it has all the basics and situations, and so if you don't really, obviously in the heat of the moment you can't just whip it out and have a look, but all soldiers should be familiar with what they can and can't do.
Yeah, it's one of the requirements.
Yeah.
It must be on your person for generally, and it's one of the things that even within a patrol base, even when you're in the middle of nowhere, it's something that you'll continue to sort of get schooled on. It's really for the commanders. It's something that they have to stay on top of their guys, because you only make the mistake once, and it can be quite a big incident. So it's something that we really have to stay on top of as individuals, but as well as through the command structure.
It's not just the constraints on warfare either, because Paul said that right from the start you learn about the Geneva Convention and the constraints that you face as a modern day soldier. But as soon as the mission becomes specific and you know where you're going, that's when they start doing more lessons based on cultural learnings that we've had so far. And these are the constraints that you have going into another country and respecting these people in their country, because it's not where we're from, we're visiting, we're trying to help out. So you follow the rules of engagement, and you also follow their customs and their traditions, and we try and have as little impact as possible whilst trying to do the best we can with our job and maintaining our mission focus at the same time. So it's a pretty hard juggling act that we face, but I think the commanders have a harder battle than us. We're just the guys on the tip of the spear. It's a bit easier for us, I guess.
Being a counterinsurgency that we were fighting, the counterinsurgency battle, it means that you're working with the population. It's not sort of the traditional, moving across land. We were living with the people, working with the people. We got to know the locals around our patrol bases, and we had to work with them really closely and be friends with them. Although, those same people, the next day could be, fighting you. Unfortunately, that's just the complexity of the situation, and it makes the whole thing far more complex for us, but it means that we don't have that mindset of us versus them, because you really have to work with the people, and you need to understand that you're trying to help them improve their lives. Whether they appreciate that or not is another issue, but there's no black and white there. It's very grey. Yeah.
One day, they might be shooting at you, and the next day, plough on the field and give you a wave and give them a thumbs up.
Firearms is the first thing, I guess.
Yeah, firearms is obviously the dead giveaway.
Yeah, look, fighting age males as well.
You basically look at everyone as an enemy first, while at the same time treating them with respect, because it's not a war, a conventional one where they're wearing a different uniform to you. They're just dressed as a local Afghani. It's really hard to identify the threat, but you go through enough training, and after a bit of experience you can learn to identify what will separate someone. Obviously you mentioned fighting age male. You have to look at their what they're wearing. If there's a bulge in a certain place that shouldn't be there, that might set your senses off or something like that.
I guess distinguishing exactly who's who, there's a build-up of tension as you're patrolling, but it's like once the first round goes off, at least then you know who's who. Oftentimes we end up being engaged before we see exactly where it's coming from, who's holding it, and then it becomes a little bit reactive from there. They obviously have a lot of advantages in the fact that they can wait for us to patrol through, whereas we're sort of left to maybe left to have to wait until engagement to really clarify what's going on. No, I think we've all had a couple years now to sort of, think about the experience and so on. But I think part of what you do is having to, work through those experiences, and I think it's part of the part of the image and what a soldier wants to portray is strength, and I think strength is overcoming those things as well. So I mean, everyone lost friends on our trip, and and I think that's part of what you have to work through, and you need to appreciate that it's harder for the families than it is for us. I mean, a lot of them have very close families, very close friends, and lives that they were meant to live, and I feel more for those people. They're more affected than I am as an individual for having lost a mate. So I think it puts the onus on you to sort of harden up and take the positive out of it. Remember who they who they were and what they did, and that they'd be proud that they've joined a really respected history that Australian soldiers have put before them, and they, as much as it's difficult to lose people, I think they went down fighting, and they went down fighting for a good cause, and every one of us volunteers to be there and is aware of what can happen, and I think the best we can do is as the ones who make it back is to take the most positive aspects we can out of it, and be happy and continue to live our lives for those blokes.
I think one of the biggest things for me is like staying in contact with the blokes I served with, and guys that I know that have done similar things to me. And organisations like the RSL, and like being able to talk about experiences, because no matter how much you explain things to people that haven't experienced it they don't fully understand what you've gone through. So that's the best thing is like staying in contact with your mates, and yeah.